Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to CirclingSeattleSport on Converge Media. You can see that we are not here in the studio. I am actually here at Rough and Tumble Pub here in Ballard. Bel is at home at the in-home studio, ever glamorous. Hey, Bel, good to see you again for a second week in a row. Interesting week for the teams that did play. The Seahawks keep their playoff hopes alive by beating the New York Jets at Lumen Field. They do need some help next week in addition to beating who do they beat? The LA Rams. The Kraken are having very much interesting times. And we got some stuff here and there. The SeaDragons added some players in the supplemental draft, which is very interesting. And the Sounders made a decently big trade. Outside of that, it's relatively quiet, though, as we have entered 2023. So happy New Year to you. Bill pokes me and says that it's a holiday and we shouldn't be working, jokingly, but who cares? I don't care. This is what we're going to do every single Monday, whether that's, here at Rough and Tumble. I don't know. Here we go. There we go. Oops, I spilled water. Official glass right there. Or, wherever that may be, like it was Washington, D.C. a few months ago at the NWSL final. So with all that, Bel, how did your New Year's go? Oh, Bel, your microphone is muted.
Thank you. I'm not going to be a downer, so I won't speak on just like all the negative things that have happened in the last couple of days. But it was nice to see our Seattle sports team start the new year on a good note.
Yeah, no, I mean, with that, in 2023, our Seattle sports teams are undefeated. Numbers don't lie. So with that all being taken into consideration, let's go straight to our Seahawks here as they hosted the Jets. Kind of a big game. I know that when we looked at this game at the beginning of the season, maybe we didn't think it might not mean much. We thought it might not mean much, probably for either team, quite honestly.
Right.
And it was pretty important for both of them because both of them needed to win in order to keep their playoff hopes alive. So why don't we go over to this January 1st win against the Jets, talk about some points, get to players of the game, and then the injury segment, which, again, we always hope is non-existent, is we have to talk about that. So we'll go right into the score here.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, win against the New York Jets on the 1st. They won 23-6. Couple of things that I noticed from this game was just kind of how quiet our wide receivers were. I always do expect to see a little bit more of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Of course, the Jets have good corners. Sauce Gardner was on DK Metcalf for a majority of the game, and he did a pretty good job on assignment on DK. DK had only one reception for 3 yards, but Tyler Lockett, as I mentioned, was also pretty quiet, and I think it's also worth noting that, of course, he just had hand surgery 10 days ago before the game, and that's a lot to come back from. I think they said metal screws inside of his hand at the time. So yeah, just a lot to play through, but it was nice to see Gino get the offense going in other areas, of course, with our tight ends, which we've seen before, and really just come out with that win.
Yeah, and I think you talked about the tight ends there, and that's something that I've really liked throughout the course of this season, right, is getting the tight ends involved and really seeing the offense. That was my point. My starting point was that it was funny with this game starting at 1 o'clock here, was at the Kraken game. We get in the building pretty early, right? So I put everything down, get set up, and I've got the Seahawks game going. And it's like the first few minutes, Ken Walker's got a 60-yard run, breaks off a 60-yarder.
Yeah.
And then like the next play or so, Gino's finding a tight end in the end zone, and I think it was Kobe Parkinson at the time. I think Parkinson scored first, and then Tyler Mabry scored second. But that was my point: was start out with the big run, and then being able to spread the ball around offensively to Mabry, to Parkinson, Mabry, who is getting his first NFL touchdown, I believe is his first NFL touchdown, a guy that's been like on and off and on and off and on and off the practice squad, really just sort of grinding his way at the NFL level. And they beat a good Jets defense. This is the Jets defense that, with the way that the offense has been playing the last few weeks, obviously you play against the Chiefs. It's a tough team. I know we got some comments about how I thought it was ridiculous. There's a comment about how they're not the same old, they're not the Chiefs that used to be. I'm like, this is still a team that has Patrick Mahomes and arguably his prime right now. And again, they traded away Tyreek Hill. The running back situation is kind of interesting because they're using Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco, who aren't necessarily traditional sort of running backs. They've still got a good defense. There's a lot of talent in that secondary. Trent McDuffie at the University of Washington. So my point being is that they're no slouch, right? And this Jets defense, about Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, who was a Seahawk last year, who elected to go in free agency to the Jets. Quinnen Williams has been a great piece for them on the defensive line after being a high draft pick a few years ago out of Alabama. So, it's a talented young defense, and they probably honestly will just continue. This Jets team will get better. They will just get better whenever they figure out that quarterback situation. They will be a four, and that's the thing. You look at that AFC East, because you've got Miami, which has got a ton of talent. With hopefully Tua is able to stay healthy, because if he continues injuries, he should probably just retire at this point. New England's an interesting case, but they continue to hang around year in and year out. Miami, I just said Miami. The Jets, we just talked about them, and then Buffalo. That's a good division right there. So, there's talent in that case, but it was, you look at the score here. We go back to the score of 23-6. That's a pretty command. It's not necessarily a blowout, but Seattle commanded this game, arguably from the time that Ken Walker had the 60-yarder. They were able to just kind of have their way. I was able to watch parts of it, and I know DK was kind of limited, I think. So that was okay. I mean, one of our leading receivers was DJ Dallas out of the backfield. I remember one of those, I think, he did a score on it, but Gino threw him like a little dump, and he was able to take it. I thought he was going to score, honestly. But this was a good, solid win for them to get back in the win column. It was really funny because you see at least I saw on socials, all of the things, like even the NFL was like, oh, Mike White's back for the Jets and he's going to start. I'm like, okay. All right. It's like, that's fine, but I'm not that worried about it. Because, he had that solid performance. I think he clicks well with Garrett Wilson. But, again, if they find a quarterback, maybe with what's happening in I almost said Oakland, with Las Vegas with Derek Carr, maybe they get Derek Carr. But we're not a Jets channel. So it just felt like a good win. It felt like they did what they needed to do. After, you could say that last week against the Chiefs was a must win in order to continue to decide your own destiny, but it's the Chiefs. We talked about it last week with it being a really tough game from the start. So there's step one. Step two is next week against the Rams, which they've been. Did they play? Well, I'm sure they had.
They weren't super commanding in their game. And they actually lost to the other LA team. So,
okay, that was that game. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, because I was gonna say, last I remembered, they were putting the smackdown like The Rock on, the Broncos and Russell Wilson.
That was last week. Yeah.
And I'll look at his stats right now, but Baker Mayfield's kind of started to rejuvenate his 11 for 19, 132, no touchdowns, no picks. But that's not bad. He got sacked 3 times. Kind of tough situation there, but he's been able to do better than he did in what was going on in Carolina, right? So it's still going to be a good competition, I feel like. But there was that whole controversy. I don't know if you saw that with the time situation with where the Seahawks game was going to be put on the NFL schedule and the Lions-Packers game, because that Lions-Packers game has been
part of the
officially
deciding factor.
Yeah. Because we need the Packers to lose that game. So go Lions, all that. And that game will be officially on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, and the argument is that if the Seahawks win, the Lions have nothing to play for.
Correct.
is how I've
Yeah.
interpreted it. So then
Yes.
knowing that score of that game could change the level of play for how they play. However, here's my take. If you're a Lions team who has been at the bottom of the NFC North for a few years and you have the chance of taking the Packers out of the playoffs, I don't know if I would ease up on them. So
No, and what I saw, there was a press conference with Lions head coach Dan Campbell today, and he basically, it's not word for word, but he said, we're going to fight. We're going to go out there and we're going to fight. I'm like, hell yeah, dude. So that's good to see. So I don't know if Everett watches the show, but Everett Fitzhugh is a big Lions fan, and him and I joked that the Lions would play the Seahawks in the NFC Conference Championship game, and the Lions would go on to win their first Super Bowl. So I would have been okay with that, honestly, but now we're in this position where we need to ultimately end their season, which is, it's tough, but we need those Lions to win still on Sunday Night Football. So to get back to our general discussion about the win over the Jets, it was a nice win. The defense played well. If we look at our players of the game, some nice sacks in there. With the rookies in this, even I think Kobe Bryant had some plays in this as well. There was some good rookie play in this game. Just really
Mike
solid.
Jackson
really solid
got
game.
his first interception.
And I will be a critic. I've been told I need to be more opinionated. So it's good. It was nice to see that, but I don't think he's a Seahawk next year. So, I mean, good to see that. We'll look at it right now. We'll look at the season right now. And that was a good contributing factor. I think that was to basically end the game, right? So it was a good, solid win that sort of gets you right back on track to where you need to be heading potentially into the postseason. So let's look at players of the game. Both of us went to the backfield for this one.
Yeah, so I did see your pick for K9, and I don't disagree with it at all, but I was also impressed by DJ Dallas, so I had to go with DJ Dallas here. It's always nice to have someone just as strong coming in a position when, of course, K9 takes a little rest. So DJ Dallas had 7 carries, 43 yards, a 6.1 average. And then he also had some receiving passes. So 3 receiving, 55 yards, 18.3 average. I really just liked his explosiveness coming into the game. And I think that that's important. Like I said, when you're giving your guy a rest to come in and just fight just as hard as he is. So yeah, that was my pick.
And, looking at it, I was I don't know if you said it, or was he the leading receiver?
I think he was, yes. Yeah, you're actually
kind of
right.
Crazy to think about. And I think I talked about this in the preseason, right? We talked about the preseason. DJ Dallas was someone that, for me, I think Penny wasn't able to play in the preseason much. Neither was Ken Walker. And DJ Dallas was the one who took advantage of his opportunities, which was really good to see. So he's been a guy that's been a solid contributor for me. Obviously, it's going to be tougher for him once the backfield is fully healthy at some point in the offseason, right? But he's contributing, and that's all you can really ask for a guy who's effectively on the bubble, in terms of the depth chart there. I did go with Kenneth Walker III. 23 carries, 133 rushing yards, including that 60-yarder that I've been talking about the first quarter. He did have 1 catch for 9 yards. And, if you take away the 60-yarder, he still got 73 yards. Most of what it was it felt like, one, he helped set the tone for the game with that big sort of gash. It was like, all right, we're ready to play. We had those struggles against the Chiefs and that 49ers game where we weren't able to run the ball. Even really in the Chiefs game was really able to run the ball. But, we were able to get back to it, have a more sort of – that's a good thing. Go back to the discussion. A balanced offense. Right. Pete Carroll talks about running the football, but really is balanced with the way that Gino has been able to run to pass and command the pocket and just be efficient, while also being able to run the football with Ken Walker III. And it was just good to see him get back to what we've seen in terms of his offensive production throughout the course of the season. So that's where I went with that. I know I hinted towards, getting to the quarterback when we were doing our general game summary, and that helps you out with your player of the game. So why don't we get to defensive players of the game here, as you went with outside linebacker Darrell Taylor.
who has had a slow start to the season, but it seems like he's kind of figuring things out right now and had a great game. He had 2 tackles, 1 assisted tackle, and then 2.5 sacks. And we're normally used to seeing Uchenna Nwosu in that role where he's super commanding and he has more of the sacks, but it's nice to see Daryl Taylor definitely take his role and take that position in some games.
Yeah, and this is somebody that last year, really with his leg all messed up as it was coming off of injury, there was some worry that he wouldn't be able to have that explosiveness
Yeah.
coming off the edge, and it's good to see him, like you said, last couple of weeks kind of ramp it up here. And you look at some of those, I know that Gerald Taylor's not necessarily a rookie, but you look at sort of the younger rookie pass rush options. Boye Mafe has good. There was one stat in particular about tackles in terms of like how much like playing time he gets, where he ranked pretty high, and there was calls for him to get more playing time. So who knows? But it's nice to see Daryl Taylor, to see his name in here consistently, right?
Yeah.
Is a good thing to see. 2 tackles is fine, but the 2.5 sacks, that's a good day. That's a good day. And it helps out your secondary as well. And I went with the secondary here, going with Tariq Woolen, the defensive rookie of the year in my opinion. 7 total tackles and 4 solo is solid from a cornerback, but the 1 pass deflection and the 1 fumble recovery. So not only, I know he's been at the top of the league in terms of interceptions as a rookie, but also going to it. And you look here at the fumble recovery, just being around the football. And that's important as well, because there was a quote it was like a mantra from Pete Carroll a few years ago. It was like the ball, it's all about the ball, and that's a good point. You want to be able to fly towards the football. I had a conversation a few weeks ago, I think it was about the 49ers defense actually, where a lot of the 49ers defense swarms to the football, whether that's, the ball carrier or just in general. And that's what the Seahawks defense used to do. That's part of the reason why they were so good in so many ways. So it's good to see that from Woolen, who, just week in and week out, you figure is learning more and more. And it's just amazing that the beginning of the year when he was drafted and all that, he was considered a project cornerback, So I'm just going to be really happy with Tariq Woolen going forward and what he's able to do in the secondary. So, this is normally where I'd like to say, oh, yeah, we were able to get through inactives and all that. But some tough stuff, as, we just hindered on. Seattle needs to win next week, and they need Green Bay to lose. And they're going to lose a big factor in that. But let's get through general injury news before any of that.
Yeah, so our inactives to begin the game were Abraham Lucas, Travis Homer, Penny Hart, Isaiah Mack, Vi Jones, Artie Burns, and Ryan Neal. But even more significant, as you mentioned, were the injury or the specific I would say the injuries that occurred during the game. So Jordan Brooks is out for the rest of the game with a knee injury that happened in the second quarter. It has now been confirmed that Brooks has suffered a torn ACL, so that ends his season. Just a big blow. You hate to see someone that's such a key part of your defense go down.
Yeah, and he's drawing criticism from this fan base, and I understand that it's tough to go from Bobby Wagner to basically anyone, right? But he's been, I think last time I checked, he was like top 3 in the league in tackles.
Yeah.
And he's essentially your leader there in the middle and amongst that front 7. So to lose him at this point in the year, well, it's not really funny, but it's just kind of harsh to look at it. Last year at this time, Bobby Wagner had injured himself around these last 2 games and was out. And that's why Jordan Brooks was able to overtake him in terms of tackles on the season. And he made the tackles in franchise history mark for a single season. So really tough blow for the young linebacker. And to suffer this injury at this point in the season means that he'll just have a longer recovery time, and it might dip into the regular season next year, which sucks. So just hoping that recovery and the rehab for that, it's a long, tough process. So I'm hoping that he's able to get through that with as much ease as is possible, right? So,
right. We did mention that Tyler Lockett had come back and was active after having a hand injury, but he also was questionable to return with a leg injury in this one. So really tough pill to swallow when you have a guy coming in after just getting injured and then injures a different body part. But hopefully it's nothing major.
Well, and then I'm trying to find a sort of timetable on it right now, but the official word for it is lower leg contusion. And I don't know about you, but contusion always sounds a little scary, but it doesn't seem like it's too bad. The only updates
do we know
are
if
contusion.
He's playing?
I'll try to find some sort of update, but all I can see is that they've put a word on what it officially is.
Okay. Well, we'll keep posted because that's definitely not a piece that we want to lose as well for a game that you have to win to get into the playoffs. So, in the fourth quarter, OG Phil Haynes was out for the rest of the game with an ankle injury, and that sums up our injuries for during the game. Yeah, I mean, those are notable injuries. I don't. Hopefully they could fight through the adversity because, like we said, this is a must-win game, and you lost Jordan Brooks. Do you think that we maybe could have done without Tyler Lockett out there against the Jets?
I mean, you mentioned he was limited, right? And I was talking to a buddy of mine during last week's game, and it was tough to not have Tyler. Obviously, I mean, you look at the numbers on third down against Kansas City, and they just were bad. And that's typically where Tyler Lockett lives and makes his money, right? I think in a way you could, but also part of it is game planning for Tyler Lockett, right? He's back so quick and he's probably still hurt, but I still have to prepare for him as if it's Tyler Lockett normally, because if I get burned, then it's my fault, right? If we get burned because we underestimate this guy or we basically game plan for him not being himself, to an effect that's on me. So I think with the way that Seattle played yesterday, yes, but it's a tough situation because part of it too is Lockett himself wanting to play through it.
Right.
Like, are you going to deny a guy like him that? You could, but I think both sides were like, hey, man, if you're good to go, you're good to go.
Let's do it.
That's
Yeah.
where they went with it there.
We had several roster moves this week. On the 26th, the team signed Godwin Igwebuike off practice squad. They placed Joey Blount on IR. They signed running back Tony Jones Jr. to the practice squad after having just waived him last week. On the 27th, they placed tight end Will Dissly on IR. He got banged on the knee. He's got a contusion that he's dealing with, said Carroll. So we've got to figure out what that's all about. So more to come on Will Dissly there. They signed Xavier Crawford off of practice squad, signed safety Steven Parker to the practice squad, claimed Isaiah Mack off of waivers. They waived Davion Nixon. Wide receiver Bo Melton was signed off of Seattle's practice squad to Green Bay's 53-man roster. And that about covers our roster moves there. On the 1st, Geno got a $1 million incentive. Smith earned a contract bonus after reaching 4,000 passing yards this season. So, good for Geno.
He's got another one, I think, if the team makes the playoffs. So more money, more problems, I guess. Not really for Geno. So it could be a good thing. But again, at the end of the day, not to get all like philosophical, but you look at this team and they've performed as well as they have, considering expectations, and they still have a top 10 pick. Which could be, I think if they got like a top 5 pick, it would be the first time in NFL history the team would make the playoffs and have a top 5 pick, which would be pretty cool. So, that's all I have to say on that. The next piece of news that we have in league news is not so cool. So neither are the two aren't.
No, they're around the same topic here. On the 26th, Brady basically told us that he was not considering retirement. When the 45-year-old quarterback was asked if he contemplates retirement, he replied, I really don't. Pretty sure the Buccaneers just took their division, right?
Yes, yep. With that win over Carolina, they won their division.
Yeah, so Brady has won his division several times already and doesn't see himself being gone anytime soon. On the 27th, JJ Watt did kind of confirm that he would be retiring after this season. He recently had a child and just said that it was good for him to see him play the first game. It was his first game watching him play, and this coming week would be his last time playing. So
Pretty crazy.
I mean, not expected, but I also do remember, I think, from Hard Knocks, hearing that he had a significant health concern early
Yes.
this year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, a lot of things could factor into that decision, but yeah, it's unfortunate to see someone of JJ Watt's caliber leaving the game.
Well, and he is the husband of Kalia Watt, who plays in the NWSL, has spent some time with the U.S. Women's National Team. And yeah, with the child and Watt, his partner, the women's soccer player, saying that she's returning back to action. Someone has to watch that kid. I know they have enough money to watch the kid, but you know what I'm saying. So
yeah,
JJ will get to be the stay-at-home dad, which is cool. I guess.
Good for him. We go back to our Seahawks here. We now sit at an 8-8 standing, second in the NFC West, still in the hunt. And as we've mentioned, we need to beat LA this coming week on the 8th, and we also need Green Bay to lose.
Ooh.
So January 8th will be a 1:25 p.m. start time. Officially?
Yeah, big game. Yep. Seahawks themselves officially confirmed that.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I heard a thud. I was like, "You're not getting away with that one." So, yeah, that's a must win. It's a must win, and then you get to scoreboard watch on Sunday Night Football. So that'll be fun, right? Not at all stressful. So we'll be with you for both of those games. It's a big Sunday for the Seahawks there, which will determine playoffs or not. Which at the end of the day, man, we're happy for either way. They won't reach 10 wins like Bill thought. They did a lot better than I thought they would anyway, so I guess we're both wrong, which is okay. We'll take that, right? Double negative makes a positive. That's what I've heard. I'm bad at math, and I guess I just got karma for it. So nothing Mariners related necessarily, as their offseason continues to be quiet. It's been quiet over the past week for the MLB as well. There are some notes here that we have from earlier in the week. Carlos Correa's saga continues. The Mets' chance to keep Correa were reportedly 55%, as several teams have reached out to him amid the belief that his camp will not budge on the length or money in his contract, as New York has concerns about his surgically repaired lower leg. Correa intends to stand firm. The Mets reportedly had the same exact medical concerns that derailed his deal with San Francisco, but he's not interested in renegotiating. On the 26th, Deion Sanders, the legendary NFL cornerback and baseball player, says that playing baseball was harder than playing football. So that's interesting. I don't know what you want to do with that. I just thought that was pretty interesting. That it's always like there's always, not to be rude, but it's like mid-tier athletes will say that. It's like guys that are, But if Deion Sanders is saying that, that's pretty interesting. I don't know. I just thought there was some interest in that. Normally, this is where we flip it back to Bell, but there's no Storm overseas updates, as that continues to not be updated. But I know that Brianna Stewart has traveled overseas and is the last few days has been getting ready to play some overseas basketball with her team. So we will probably have an update for you when it comes to next week. Aside of that, that's the Storm news. And I will take it back here and be selfish. And we've got Sounders news here, as there's been some important stuff. Started with there's a bunch of rumors going around the Sounders. We have one piece of official news, at least, or two pieces. The first piece being that on December 26th, Sounders head coach Brian Schmetzer was named amongst the 15 finalists for the best club coach in the world. The list was created by the International Federation of Football History and Statistics. Schmetzer is not likely to win the award, but to see a coach in the MLS, let alone the Sounders head coach, be in that top 15 in the world is a pretty strong mark to see, and it's something that we should recognize, I think, at least, just considering the turmoil, not necessarily the turmoil, but the struggling season that Seattle had, and everything that's come with it since Schmetzer has taken over the top boss job with Seattle. And it'll be another interesting one as well. Seattle's going to have to add to their roster. They did so with this next piece on December 28th. The club was reportedly interested in talks to acquire Heber from New York City FC. He's a Brazilian player who's 31 years of age. He's recorded 24 goals and 6 assists in 70 MLS matches, with 8 of those coming last year, 2022. He won MLS Cup in 2021 with New York City FC, and excelled in Croatia before joining New York in 2019. Just a day later, the club will officially make that trade happen, acquiring him from New York City FC. Seattle sends $400,000 in general allocation money and $150,000 of conditional general allocation money to New York City FC in exchange for the veteran attacker. So I've talked about this before with Seattle trading picks and trading other things for this general allocation money. It's going to be used somewhere. That's always whenever you see that stacked in succession over the course of a few weeks, you know a move's going to happen. It happened with Jordan Heidema. It happened with Tobin Heath with the Reign. It's just how it works. And it happened with the Sounders trading Brad Smith to get some general allocation money, and they were able to get Albert Rusnak in the last offseason. So as part of that trade package, Seattle would send New York $200,000 of 2023 allocation money and $200,000 of 2024 GAM, as well as that additional $150K if certain performance metrics are met. The Brazilian does not occupy an international roster spot and is under contract for the 2023 season and has a club option for 2024. General Manager Craig Weibel had this to say about the move. We are excited to bring in Heber and strengthen our team with a proven veteran attacking player. His track record across multiple leagues speaks for itself, and he's been an impact player since coming to MLS. I'd like to welcome him to Seattle and look forward to watching him work with our existing squad once camp begins. So I like the move personally. You know, you were looking once you decided that Will Bruin wasn't coming back in this offseason. You're able to sign Freddie Montero for next to nothing. You kind of figured that Seattle had to get a backup veteran attacker, and they did come out and say that. You know, Craig Weibel came out and said that, and they did so. Some people were upset. There's two ways to look at this. Right? He's 31 years old. Some people have wanted Seattle to go younger and kind of get rid of the aging contracts, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, to an extent, rebuild, right? This is a move by Seattle that they're going to continue to reload as opposed to rebuild. And they look at the 31-year-old who's 8 goals last season. It's not laughing. It's not a insult, I wouldn't say. And it's just basically Seattle is reloading, and they're not planning on starting that rebuild right now. They're going to do what they can and get the last sort of juices out of guys like Nico Ladero, maybe Stephen Fry, Freddie Montero, and continue Raul Ruiz-Diaz, and continue to go with the group that they've got and have confidence in the group that they've got, with a lot of players returning this upcoming year. So I think this is just a retool move. It was interesting to see a lot of the fan base kind of be like, who's this guy? And to an extent, there were comments that, you think about this, like Inter Miami was rumored to get Messi. Toronto FC signed Insigne to like the biggest contract in free agency in MLS history. A lot of fans want the Sounders to go out to get guys like Luis Suarez who are aging and get them on aging contracts. And I don't think that's necessary. Like with the Mariners, right? Why go out and pay a guy like Carlos Correa for 10 years when I want to be able to build from the draft? I want to build from within. I want to build young.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they're retooling right now instead of rebuilding. I'm okay with it, personally. I'm not too worried about it. And with a lot of this group being a group that, you won Champions League with in 2019, a good amount of them were here for the MLS Cup. So I'm not worried about it. I'm really not. You see the banner that I've got below my teeth here with these rumors. You talked about the Heber rumor. There was a rumor in the same day that Christian Roldan may be in line for a big extension. Mm-hmm. Sources tell us that Seattle is looking to give the midfielder a 5-year extension to stay with the club. Those sources also say that there were multiple offers for Roldan on the table, including 2 outside of the MLS, which, you look at MLS, and a lot of players will go from MLS to other leagues and use the MLS as a launching ground. And it sounds like Roldan is going to be one of those. You look at this in general sports, right? Whether it's the NFL, the MLB, WNBA, even NHL, NWSL. NWSL is a big case of this. A lot of these leagues, even, you look at MLR with teams we cover, there's not many one-team players anymore. Just not with the way business works, with the way money, all this. And Roldan, with this extension, may be one of those guys. So that would be cool to see. But to this point, to the fact that it says this right below my finger, it's a rumor. It's a rumor. So we'll go with those sources. If it's right, then we got it right. If it's wrong, maybe it fell out. Less than a rumor, though, this has been something that's been a talk since last season. And there were discussions that after the World Cup happened, knew who would be transferred. It is after the World Cup, the Men's World Cup, that is. But there was a big, heavy report that Nuhu was drawing heavy interest in the transfer market to a Cameroon club. Nuhu is from Cameroon. But those rumors actually turned out to be fake, as the club that was linked to him, that was reportedly looking into him, they came out and legitimately said, hey, that's not true. So that kind of, and then Jeremiah Oshan, who's a great Sounders reporter, pointed out that one of the sources and journalists that was pointing it out in his bio was respected Cameroon journalist. I could go for your word for it, dude. If I put in my bio respected NHL photographer, who knows? Maybe people believe me. I don't know.
You're not Liv.
No, I'm not. Liv's giving me that's Ben's guest appearance on Circling Seattle. The camera's right here. I could turn the camera right now. So, Liv Lyons is behind the camera in a different way right now. Not one that I'm sure they like. But anyway, so yeah, that Nuhu thing was squashed. Nuhu is probably still going to get transferred at some point, but we don't have any clear indication on where and when that might be. On January 2nd, this morning, defender Aaron Long reportedly has the Seattle Sounders on his short list. This is another rumor, but Taylor Twellman, who's a big MLS guy, big MLS pundit, talking head, whatever you may call him, said that the Sounders and Miami were these two players. Long has narrowed down his list, to two MLS clubs, Seattle and Inter Miami, offers from Liga MX's Cruz Azul and CF Monterrey, and a few European clubs, including two in England. He has rejected offers from Saudi Arabia amid interest in Long as a free agent. So, Seattle, that would be sort of a crowded space. Just considering that at this point right now, you still have Nuhu, you still got Javier Iraga, you still have Yeimar, you still have Alex Rodon. So that's 4 defenders. Unless you decide to go 5 defenders, which I highly doubt Seattle does, you have to figure someone moves, and maybe that's something that happens when Nuhu gets moved. But we'll have to see about that. So lots of rumors, but Seattle does officially acquire a backup forward in Heber. We look to Lord of League Newts here, and it's unfortunate. I said League Newts. I keep doing that, dude. It's
Newts.
League Newts. Noot. If anybody watched Pingu, Liv has not seen Pingu. You're supposed to be the elder here. On the 29th of December, this has been a topic for a few months with Pele. Pele's been dealing with some health stuff, and unfortunately, Pele would pass away at the age of 82 due to colon cancer. 3-time World Cup winner and just a football icon. A lot of people, when they think of, like these debates about the greatest of all time, and unfortunately, I think the GOAT word is used a little too often nowadays. Pele was like universally, to an extent, degreed as here's my thing. You look at greatest running backs of all time, right? When I think of greatest running backs, I think of guys like Walter Payton, Jim Brown, Barry Sanders. Those 3 are typically put in there. A lot of people put Emmett Smith in there, and I understand that. But those 3 that I just listed are usually who I go for. Pele was one of those guys that was kind of generally yeah, I understand that. Yeah, that makes sense. So I want to see here if I've got it. Shoot. Oh, it's a red photo. There was, I tie this in here. We can tie this into Seattle. Once Pele with the New York Cosmos, way back in the days of the Kingdom, Pele was here in Seattle, and he scored a bicycle kick goal. And there's this great photo, if you look up Pele Seattle, where he's in the air and he's about to launch it. So just really unfortunate, for that to happen. 2022, the last few years have taken a lot of people, right? So it's really tough for that. But the best thing you can do is continue to honor the legacy of these folks. And there's so many ways to do so. So hoping and praying, that for his family as they deal with that loss there to a true icon. Now I can finally pass things over after I've been playing hot potato with the topics to Bel for the Kraken here, who First two games of that homestand were no bueno in a lot of ways, and we have another photo breakdown of some of these goals. So we'll be there. The frustration and anger will be back. But Belle, why don't we look at some scores first?
Yeah, first two games of the week, but last two games of the year. And they were both losses. On the 28th versus the Calgary Flames, they lost 2-3. Our player of the game is Philip Grubauer, who had 41 saves, a 932 save percentage, a 1.32 goal save above expected, and he tied the franchise record for saves per game. On the 30th versus the Edmonton Oilers, which would be the last game of 2020-22. They lost 2-7. Our player of the game was Morgan Geekie with 1 assist, 1.3 shots, and 7 faceoffs won. On the 1st, they started 23 off right with a win versus the New York Islanders. That was a 4-1 win. Player of the game is Adam Larson with 1 goal, 1 point, a 1+-, 4 shots, and 4 hits.
So, yeah, Belle, you talk about those. Winning to begin the year is good. And we can talk about that in a minute. But, man, oh, man. Remember last week we went with the breakdown of the goals here?
Yeah, lay it on me.
So first of all, let's preface this, right? We look at that Calgary game. You mentioned Grubauer having the 41 saves, 932 save percentage, 1.3 goals saved above expected, tying the franchise record for saves in the game. So Grooby has many nicknames. I'm getting laughed at. Grooby, my mom calls him Grubhub. Hi, Mom. My mom calls him Grubhub. Grubauer, all that sort of thing. We're gonna do a switch. Rough and Tumble again. We're here at Rough and Tumble. I just got a beer live on camera, so I appreciate that.
You're so welcome.
We've got an audio appearance. We do have a camera here. I love this place, man. Thank you. Wow, that was cool. We should do all these here. But so just prefacing that, right? So 41 saves, just a hell of an effort against Calgary. Calgary is a really good offensive team. They added Nazem Kadri over the offseason. It's a divisional game, right? And with that win, I believe they overtook you in the stand, or they knocked you down a peg in the standings. Coming to this Edmonton game, Grubauer was named the starter, which when I saw him come out as the first off the ice, I was a little bit surprised, to be honest. I thought, with a tandem, my ideal way to look at a tandem is goalie start, and have it. I'm dancing here, but you know what I'm saying. We switch off here.
Right.
No, that wasn't the case. And I'll be okay with that because Grubauer is the better of the two goaltenders, and we can fight about that.
Hot take.
Within the first 4 minutes of the game, Edmonton has scored 3 goals, and we're going to look at some of the issues here. So, Bella, you ready to Stare at the Uncomfortable Photo Part 2?
No and yes.
All right, here we go. Tell me what's wrong here. Besides the fact
is he really just that close?
He's that wide open. He's that unmarked. You see the gentleman over to the far left over there, right next to the dot that's wide open? Yeah, that's where the pass came from, and that's where the guy was left wide open. So that's tap in.
Oh, my goodness.
Easy. Tell me. Oh, wrong one. Tell me what he does there. What can he do?
I mean, just easy tap in.
Let me see if I can. This might be the Jonesy one. That's the Jonesy one. So let's look at this one. He's literally right in front of him. He's opened the door. He's saying, "Hello, would you like to learn about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ?"
And Groovy's the only one there to try to defend.
Yeah, he's like, "I have opened the door. I did not look through the peephole. I did not get the Ring doorbell camera. I cannot look at him and tell him to get the hell off my porch." You look at the 3 skaters that are looking at him like, oh, bad words.
Just staring
right now, but I'm not saying bad words. Right. So there's that. The third goal came off of a breakaway. It was a 3-on-2, and I don't have 3-on-2, right? 3-on-2, and the 2 up here. So the 2 went to effectively defend these 2, and they left the guy. And I'm using them. That's not the middle finger. Thank you. The middle guy was left wide open to shoot. He was in the garden spot. It was basically like target practice. We've got Nick here. Nick, that's nothing against Nick, but anybody could have done that. This third one is just unacceptable as well, and it's against Jones. So it's not just I'm pegging anything against Jones, but this is, again, he's walking down the aisles of Home Depot with his cart and he's adding everything on the shelves. This is terrible. This is just it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And so I'll let you soak that in. If you need to pause and smash a keyboard, go ahead. Those aren't cheap, though. I would instead recommend having libations like Rainier.
There you go.
At Rough and Tumble Pub. But the vibe in the locker room was just rancid after that game. It was bad. You could tell people were upset. And it was really interesting because in the practice the day before, head coach Dave Haxel had basically said, I challenge the guys. They need the general gist of the quote is a pretty good quote. And I believe it's in our article for the loss against Edmonton. He basically challenged the team, hey, this is when things get real, right? It's like December in the NFL. Teams start to kick into another gear. Things get tougher. Points are, you need to get these points for the playoff seeding. The division starts to get tighter, and it's a big deal. And it was just funny to hear that quote to challenge the team to say, hey, are you just going to be happy with the way that things have been going? Or are you going to kick it into the next level? And then they put out that performance. So this prompted a pretty brutal practice the next day. RJ, my buddy from Emerald City Hockey, titled it a lunch pail sort of practice, more of a hardworking, a grittier. Yanni Gord called it a sandpaper-like practice. And they worked on the penalty kill. They really hammered some things home. They had a long talk after the practice had ended. My friends are leaving and they're not going to make an appearance. Terrible. Just know that they exist. Take care. I am alone here in the corner. And so you're like, okay, will this make any much of the difference? And it did. Seattle looked much cleaner in that win against the Islanders. They were able to. My big thing, too, part of it, if you read that article that I had against Edmonton, please go check that out. It was totally scorched earth. It was woof. But, talk about the defensive issues. Excuse me. Part of the thing is that Seattle, they were 22nd in shots per game in the league, which they're the bottom 10 in the league for a team that's got the offensive weapons that they have, that had the offensive November that they had. That's kind of unacceptable. They put up a good amount of shots in this game against New York. I put it out in a tweet yesterday that Seattle went 2-0 against New York. This guy got upset and he goes, the Islanders are in New Jersey. I'm like, shut up and accept it. I was like, you went out and you took the time to comment. Calm down. But they were just much cleaner defensively. The penalty kill went 2 for 2, thankfully. The power play actually scored. Eeli Tolvanen scored his first goal as a Kraken in his first game. That was part of it, too, was with this whole, head coach Dave Haxel called it a mentality thing. And I think he's right. If you're at home and the dishes are full and they look nasty, part of it is, do I want to just kind of leave it there, or do I want to go out and I have to do the dirty work? I have to go out and clean the gutters. I have to go out and, pick the weeds, all this stuff. Who wants to go and do the dirty shit? Oh, well, there it goes. Who wants to go out and do that work? And in hockey, that's blocking shots, forecheck, back check, just doing the dirty work, doing the stuff, the gritty stuff. And that will usually decide who's a team that's in the playoffs and making a deep run, and who's maybe making the playoffs and they're out in the first round, or maybe they just miss them all together. And Seattle looked like that team. They were much more active with their sticks. They were blocking shots. They were sacrificing their body. And I talk about Eeli Tolvanen scoring on that power play goal. And that's a big thing when the team acquired him off of waivers, was he's got a really heavy shot. And so that was displayed, but also he was blocking shots and putting his body on the line. And that was what you want to see, not only from this team, but from players like that. Tolvanen's a guy who is effectively playing for a contract, playing for a home, and he's doing stuff like that. So that was really great to see after, obviously, those 2 losses. The 2-3 loss to Calgary, that's fine. You'd like to see better, but Calgary is a great team. And it's a divisional game, and I expect you're not going to go on perfect against the division. It's damn near impossible in a lot of things. So basically, my point in this is Seattle got back to hardworking hockey, is what I like to call it. Their offense looked better. Adam Larson was able to score the first goal. Tolvanen scored the second. Shoot. On Oliver Bjorkstrand, who's had trouble scoring this year, was able to put one through as well. So maybe like if you keep missing shots, right? If I'm horrible from the free throw line, and I find not the free throw, 3-point line, and I finally get one to go, maybe that opens the floodgates. Right?
Yes.
That's what the hope is there. And he's kind of struggled. You see what I mean? I know Belle's the basketball person here, so I'm trying to work with her. But if they're able to keep this up, and that's been something with this Kraken team, even to last year, they beat a lot of talented teams last year. They just didn't play the 60 minutes, the full 60 minutes, the full team effort consistently. They play great periods here and there, or 2 periods, but not the 3 all the time. And it's finding that consistency, it's finding that motivation, it's that mentality that they talked about, the determination. So if they're able to keep that up, they've got a tough stretch of January where they play a bunch of teams at the top of the league, including this upcoming week. Well, they play Edmonton tomorrow, so you look to right the ship there. Play the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are near the top of the table. The New Jersey Devils are going to come to town, and they've been near the top of the table as well. The Boston Bruins, who just won the Winter Classic, that's why we're here at Rough and Tumble Pub, will come to town, or we'll play them. I don't know if they come here. But point being, it's going to be a tough stretch. They play a lot of division games as well. But if they're able to play like they did against the Islanders, I think they'll be able to make it out of this month with a winning month. I believe, their first losing month of the year was December. They had a great November where they effectively didn't lose at all. And October was they played a few games here and there. We missed the opener because of that 18-inning Mariner game. But you know what I mean. Point being, if they can do this consistently, I think they're dangerous. So.
All right, we'll go head into our players of the week. I'm going to go ahead and just continue here because I went with Adam Larson, who we just had as our player of the game for that win against the New York Islanders. So Charles has thrown the stats up there, but my decision was based off of Sunday's first period goal, giving him a point in 6 consecutive games. And that is the first time that has happened in Adam Larson's career. So congrats to him.
That's a great point too, and I liked when you put that in there. Credit to Bell. Bell did a great job on the notes this week. That's something too, is that I talk about the offensive input of this team, and with Tolvanen scoring, this Kraken team has a lot of depth. Their fourth line's been tremendous this year. They've got contributions from up and down the line. You don't always get that, right? You're not going to get scoring on your bench all the time necessarily. You might have a couple guys like a 6-man that you can count on to do that. But to get that sort of consistently if I can count on everybody all the way, if I can say, I can go down the lineup and I can say there's not that many, it's a good thing. And to that point, the defenseman pairs have been able to score offensively as well. And Larson here with that streak, you like to see that because Larson is part of your top defensive pairing, meaning he's one of your top 2 defensemen. Not defensive line. I got into the football mantra there. Top 2 defensemen. Yeah, he's not that big. But to see that is good because you want your defensemen to be able to chip in offensively as well. You got 5 guys on the ice in terms of skaters, and 2 of them are defensemen. So if you can have those 2 help, it's going to be a big deal. I went with Ryan Donato, so it's funny. We just had Nick and Liv here. Yeah. Donato and Larson are their 2 favorite players. So I kind of chuckled.
I knew Larson was Liv's.
So we've got this photo here of Ryan Donato. You can see it on your screen a little bit. He's trying to shush the Islanders defender. He's saying, shush, it'll be okay. Sweet nothings. I went with Donnie here. I almost agreed with Liv. I mean, Liv. I'm too busy talking about people that are not here right now. I almost agreed with Bell with the Larson when he looked at the points, and I thought that was good. Thank you. Donato had 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points, which is similar to what Larson had on the week. But I liked just the plus minus that Donato had. Plus minus if you're on for the ice for goals or not. And 7 shots, 1 hit, 2 face-off wins. And with Tolvanen coming into the lineup, somebody had to come out. And I thought it was either Donato or Morgan Geekie. Morgan Geekie would end up going out. It just made sense, though, because Donato's been really producing in terms of points the last few games. And that's something he did even last year to earn a contract this year. So just hoping that he's able to keep that up. It's going to be tough. This is something I don't want to have to address necessarily right now. But there's even in the Seahawks season, right? We look at guys who are going to be free agents or so-and-so at the end of the year, right? We look at guys who are at the end of their contract. We have a bunch of guys for the Kraken who are going to have to be reevaluated, for that. But we're not even at All-Star break yet, so we're not going to worry about that just yet. We might take a look at that here in a little bit. But for now, we're going to leave that and get through the rest of this Kraken segment, which our buddy Shane Wright's doing all right. Why don't we look at team news?
Yeah, team Newts.
Did I say team Newts?
Oh. No, you didn't. I'm teasing you.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So as you mentioned, a prospect check-in here. Shane Wright, in 4 games, he's had 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points, a +1 since his time in AHL Coachella Valley. With the Firebirds, 5 games, 4 goals. In the NHL, 1 game, 1 goal. World Juniors, 3 games, 3 goals. And 9 games, 8 goals?
That's just the total.
Okay. Sorry, confused me there. So yes, total of 9 games and 8 goals. We move on to Johnny Nyman, who has 4 games played, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points, and 1 game winning goal. And Nicholas Coco, who hasn't played a game yet.
And so we're checking in our guys.
Yeah.
Shane's. This is something I've talked about, and even we talked about it when he was able to get into, even after he scored against Montreal. And was headed off to World Juniors. You know, he's had a great month of December, and now it's going to carry into January with the end of World Juniors. And you just really hope that this is a big, big builder. Oh, the sun's coming in. Is this my golden hour?
It is.
You just hope that this builds his confidence and is able to help him. The soonest game he could come back to Seattle would be January 7th versus Ottawa. And we'll get to it here when we go to upcoming. But the Kraken go on the road for like 13 days, which is like kind of long. So it'll, be a bit. But nice to see Shane have this nice time with, Bel broke it down with Coachella, the 1 game with the Kraken, and then the World Juniors. And even Yanni Nyman. Yanni Nyman's been doing pretty well in terms of the advanced stats as well. The 2 goals, 1 assist is great, 3 points overall. But some of his underlying stats as well have been really solid. And we talk about with the Mariners and their farm system. This goes for the prospect pool as well with the Kraken. So you like to see building for that future. I love it.
I'll let you touch on the next piece of news because I know that you're probably super stoked. Yes.
Ooh. So this was something. You know what? You're right. I'm going to stand for this. Maybe this is the Rainier talking. This was something. Oh, you can see my rain shirt. Okay. So I don't have the hats today, but I've got something. So this was something that was rumored over the past few weeks that Seattle would host this event, and it was a big deal. We actually, as I mentioned, Liv Lyons, our lead photographer, and her husband Nick were here as we were watching at Rough and Tumble, the Winter Classic between Pittsburgh and Boston. Typically, it's a game played between sort of the storied franchises, right? Some of the older teams. In venues like Fenway Park, like Wrigley Field. Where else have they done? They've done it other places, but you get what I'm saying. It's kind of the older. The NHL is deciding to go in a different direction, and they're going to do so with 2 of the hottest markets in the NHL and 2 of the newest teams in the NHL. As it was announced earlier today that the Winter Classic is heading to Seattle. The 2024 Winter Classic, an outdoor game played between 2 teams, where both of them wear throwback uniforms, will take place at our beloved T-Mobile Park on New Year's Day as Seattle hosts the Las Vegas Golden Knights. It is the NHL's premier event. It will be the first outdoor contest for the Kraken, who began their NHL journey just last year. Ron Francis, the general manager of the team, had this to say: outdoor hockey is at the essence of our game and the way many of our players grew up playing it. We are thrilled to have the chance to showcase this in Seattle. The 2024 Discover NHL Winter Classic continues the tradition the league established in 2008 of hosting a regular season, at the onset of the new year, with the 2024 edition marking the 16th anniversary. CEO of the Kraken, Todd Lewicki, had this to say: "We are honored that the NHL has selected the Kraken in just our 2nd season to host this amazing event at the home of our friends, the Mariners." Over 40,000 fans. Think about that. Climate Pledge Arena holds about 18,000 at full capacity. 40,000 is more than double that. And T-Mobile Park can hold more than double that. So maybe I don't know how that'll go from now until then, but it's looking good. I can imagine they're going to do a good job of selling that place. Over 40,000 fans will witness the beauty and grace of our wonderful game in a venue that showcases the Puget Sound, surrounded by the Cascade and Olympic Mountains. Katie Griggs, Seattle Mariners president of business operations, had this to say: "It's a tremendous honor to host the next NHL Winter Classic at T-Mobile Park. We're thrilled to have the opportunity to support our hometown team when they take the ice and see our ballpark packed to the rafters with our city's incredible fans cheering them on. So you're right. This is a slam dunk. When I saw it, it was like, okay, with the rumors, I know we talked about rumors in the Sounder segment, right? You got to take things with a grain of salt because it can be like this was stuff that got this close. It could be just completely wrong. This is great to see. And it was interesting because there are a couple venues. People have theorized this thing sort of happening since the team actually began. They thought Lumen Field. I thought Lumen Field would fit the best just because of the way it's built like a bowl. It would surround the ice better. Husky Stadium on Montlake was thought about, which I understand that because it's the greatest setting in college football. But T-Bone Park makes the most sense because you think New Year's Day and the weather in the city. And if it rains on that ice, the game is done. They can't play anymore, If it snows like it has in some of these other games, these other Winter Classics, it's fine because it's basically already snow, right? Water and that rain. So T-Mobile Park's roof, I think, was the biggest factor there. Todd Lewicki did speak with the media right as we were setting up, and he did say that the roof was nice, but he said the biggest factor was how much the Mariners helped pitch this to the NHL. I think the roof is the bigger thing. But it's good to know, we talk, all we do at CirclingSeattleSports here, right, with all of our teams, you always like to see when they kind of are buddies with each other like that. Hey, you just copied my hand motion.
Yeah.
So this was just a great example of that because they reached out to the Mariners and the Mariners were like, oh, this is great. And the Mariners really pushed that. So that's awesome. I think that's really awesome and will be a ton of fun to see. I'm interested to see how that works for us, Bel, in terms of press and all that, because it's like a crossover episode. You ever watch those crossover episodes like Jimmy Neutron and Fairly Odd Parents or something? Stuff it's a crossover episode. They've had it in a bunch of different shows. Like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and New Girl had a crossover episode that I didn't even realize until I watched both of them. It's a crossover episode between our friends at the Mariners, whether it's PR, the fans, the workers, and then the Kraken. They're going to collide. It's going to be interesting to see that. So it'll be a ton of fun, but look forward to that in the next season.
Yeah, very exciting confirmed rumor. So not a rumor anymore. But we'll move on to some league news here. On the 28th, the NHL has fined the Maple Leafs $100K. The league has penalized Toronto for traveling during the league-mandated Christmas break for Tuesday's game in St. Louis. We'll move back to our Kraken here for our standing and record. We currently sit at 19-12-4 record, fourth in the Pacific with 42 points. Looking ahead, we have a game tomorrow at the Edmonton Oilers this time. That's a 6 p.m. puck drop. On the 5th at the Toronto Maple Leafs with a 4 p.m. puck drop. And then once again away at the Ottawa Senators for a 4 p.m. puck drop. So we actually have some SeaDragons news here. So why don't you go ahead and take it away, Chuck?
Yeah, it sucks. I've got my hoodie on. I'm at Rough and Tumble. I don't have any rain news, but it's just been really quiet for them for the past few months. Yeah. The Seawolves have been quiet as well, despite the fact that they've been the last few months they continue to add to their roster. But SeaDragons, yes, they had their supplemental draft yesterday on the 1st. And there's one name in particular. He's our cover photo for it, so I'll just put it on here. Josh Gordon's part of it, and that got me. I was like, wait, is it that Josh Gordon? Like Josh Gordon that had all those great seasons, 2 great seasons in Cleveland, and just had issues where the league didn't want him to smoke weed, and then he was part of the Seahawks for a bit, and Seattle just kept wanting to take him back. I hope the XFL rules are not as stingy, first of all. But let's get to the draft results. If you look here, you'll notice there's a trend with a lot of trenches. Offensive linemen. So here's the draft results for the supplemental draft of the XFL. Offensive lineman Kai Abshir, offensive lineman Ryan Pope-Williams, offensive lineman Jared Thomas, defensive lineman Sharif Miller, inside linebacker Clarence Hicks, wide receiver Josh Gordon, offensive lineman Tian Koroma, wide receiver Jordan Vesey, defensive back Elijah Holder, offensive tackle Kalik Washington, offensive guard Zach Thomas, defensive end Chris Rice, and fullback Ben Bise. I thought this draft was interesting, obviously because of Josh Gordon to the highest extent, but also the fact that they took a fullback, and some people wanted them to take a tight end, but as was so kindly told to us in comments from the initial draft was that
some people thought they would take another tight end or add another tight end, but with the run and shoot offense that June Jones runs, they only really use one tight end. But yeah, if Joshua Perkins goes down with an injury, what do? You just don't have a tight end.
Right.
Maybe you put Ben Bisay as the fullback in a tight end. So kind of interesting, but I just really like that he added Josh Gordon. I really hope that the rules aren't as stringent as the NFL, so that if he needs to do that, you're able to. That's funny. 4 minutes ago, the Bleacher Report app wanted to tell me that Josh Gordon got drafted to the XFL. We were actually on it. So that'll be really cool, and I just hope he's able to succeed. Ben DiNucci, your pick for a player to watch this season, was really excited and says he's going to see him this weekend to work out. So hopefully that's a great connection there, and just really excited for that. And just excited for the XFL season. I mean, it should be a ton of fun. Just if you look at views and general interest, a lot of people really enjoy the XFL coverage and seem to be excited about the XFL. So I'm hoping that we can. Well, I did message the social media admin for the SeaDragons, and they said that the schedule is dropping very soon. So that very soon could be 2 hours, or it could be a week.
Which they were actually getting harassed on Twitter too. I think the SeaDragons tweeted something about like, what would you like to see in 2023 from them? And everyone's like, a schedule would be nice.
Yeah. So just like for our planning purposes, so I can incorporate stuff, I'd like to be able to put that down, right? Considering when we hit spring, I've talked to Bel about it. Once we hit spring, things get busy. So I'd like to be able to start to incorporate plans for that. But yeah, overall, I'm happy with it. And we're pushing it here. So we'll wrap up our SeaDragons segment and get to our unanimous Seattle Star of the Week pick.
K9, Kenneth Walker III. So after Sunday's game, he officially had 1,000+ scrimmage yards this season, and he joins Kurt Warner and Joey Galloway as the only rookies in Seahawks franchise history to do so. Of course, he started the game explosive, and he really gave our offense the boost it needed to take the lead in the game early, and hopefully he can help this week as well. So anything you'd like to add?
No, I think oops, I hit the wrong thing. You think you had a great point there, with the sort of scrimmage yards there, but just he's kind of in a way been the leader of the pack when it comes to our young rookie class. I know that Abraham Lucas was on an inactive list, unfortunately, with an injury. But you think about that Seahawks rookie class with Charles Cross, who you picked correctly when it came to our draft primer. You picked the right tackle there. Charles Cross, Abe Lucas, Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant, Kenneth Walker. It feels like Walker's kind of led the pack there. And it's just really interesting to always think about the dynamic that him and Rashad Penny would have if they're both healthy. But just the explosiveness he's had, there was some concern with him coming out of the college season that he might – he had a big year at Michigan State. I know he transferred to Michigan State, I believe. There was like, is it just a fluke? Is he really not that good? And you just see the sort of burst, the sort of explosiveness that he does have. And I think any of that doubt would go away. You know what I mean? So he's just continued to be a great contributor for this team. And hopefully he has a big game next week because we're going to need it. I think Aaron Donald's still out, so you don't have to worry about him necessarily. They've got a good – I could be wrong. I know that last report I saw on him was that he might be out for the season with an injury, but we'll have to look at that as we look ahead to this Rams game. But Ken Walker's just been electric all year when he's been able to get in the game, and just really happy to have him offensively and just healthy, just having a happy on this team. So
yeah, that wraps us up.
So, we look at it, and the Seahawks have a must-win next week, and they need to get some outside help as the Detroit Lions play the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football. But first things first, you got to beat the Rams. So that game's on January 8th at 1:25 p.m. The Mariners continue throughout this free agency period. Things are kind of quiet right now in the MLB offseason, but you never know when Jerry Dipoto might strike with a trade. The Seattle Storm probably will have some updates for you for Storm overseas next week as Brianna Stewart has finally joined her overseas team for the offseason. And I know that the WNBA was working on some new dates for WNBA free agency. So maybe that sort of thing gets rolling sooner rather than later. The Sounders Brian Schmetzer was named as a finalist for the best club coach in the world, which is great to see. Again, I don't think he'll win it, but it's nice to see him recognized in that sort of field. The club acquired Hebert from New York City FC, who is a backup forward who's been able to produce in his time in MLS and helps kind of the Sounders sort of retool. Let's see, what else do we have here? The Kraken. Tough sort of homestand there, but if the last game against the Islanders is any indication of what's going to take place, then they're going to be in good shape. And we found out that Seattle will be hosting the Winter Classic in 2024, which is a big deal for the city as well. The old Rain continued their offseason. It's been relatively quiet. There have been some notes here in free agency for other NWSL clubs, but nothing for our Rain as of yet. Our Seahawks as well, they've been busy in the offseason adding talent from the other clubs that will not be playing this season, but just looking forward to get to the MLR season when that decides to kick off, because the Seawolves are looking like a really, really strong team. The SeaDragons add a bunch of talent in the offensive line department and the defensive line. Well, mostly offensive line, if you remember when we went over that. But also the big playmaker, hopefully Josh Gordon, is drafted to the Seattle SeaDragons. Would like to give you a Supersonics news. But that's the point. This is us coming to you from Alignment Rough and Tumble Pub here in Ballard, the first the first primarily women's sports bar here in the city of Seattle, the state of Washington, the second in the country. And I know that there's a really bad comedian on Twitter who was like, who's commented about them going out of business, blah, blah, blah. They're doing
because
great right
they
now.
only play women's sports is what he
That's
said,
what he
which
thought.
is not true.
Nope. As I said, Liv Lyons, our lead photographer, and her husband Nick and I were here watching the NHL Winter Classic. We've watched a few Kraken games here already. They have the Rose Bowl going on, or they did have the Rose Bowl, and now it's Monday Night Football getting ready. I see Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. So these folks are great. You know, we had an on-screen appearance, which we haven't done, and I got given a Rainier on camera.
On screen for the first time.
Yeah, can we do that more often? I don't know. So until we see you next week, we're in the year 2023, and there's going to be a large amount of things that come for Circling Seattle Sports. I can tell you that. I've talked to Bel a little bit about it, so I'm excited for you all to see that. Until we see you next week, our teams are going to be kind of quiet, you know, at least in terms of home team. The Seahawks are playing at home next week, but until we see you on January 9th, do whatever you be okay. Be careful. You know, we don't have the ice right now, which is great. The sun's out. I was in my golden hour, all that. I've been taking care of my skin a little bit. But until we see you next week, take care of yourself, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day. Bel, any thoughts?
No, that about signs us off.